Hey people, that last movie I was looking at this King Tut's chest, and I was looking at this and I was seeing a horse head. And Chosen One says that is definitely a bird in the hand. And I say, when you're an idiot, nobody's going to tell you, friends won't tell you. So thanks a lot. I had to look at that again, and I plainly see, after I'd zoomed out, that was definitely a bird. Another one sitting right beside it here. It's zoo. In Egypt, they'll say it means the sacred bird. In Hebrew, they'll say zoo means command. And in Greek, they'll say zoo is Eve, the mother of all life. And so it better says, the command or the life has invites all too. So I want to hit this Antichrist in this line. It comes up twice in this line. And they trying to make it sound like the chupacabra or something. Little children, the last hour it is. And as you have heard that the chupacabra is coming, even now the chupacabra many have arisen, whereby we know that the last hour it is. And so this last hour, this is Ishat. Ishat hour. The Ishat of rest. The Shat of resting. And it means the shadow of resting. It means the sun is gone down. When the sun goes down, your shadow's gone. It's resting. It's the last hour of the day. The sun goes down and children go to bed, or the chupacabra has come get you. So this Pidia, it's probably better read as F-A-I-T. The Fatia. The Fatia is Ishat. And so Ishat, it comes from this word for the shadow. And it was the part of your soul that caused gravity. And every time you jumped, it would always pull you back to earth. And it was, the last part of your soul. Your soul had several parts, and it was the last part to come out of the tomb. So I'm going to read this without the tetragrammatons, and then I'll come back. But Padia, is also the fade, and it's also fate, F-A-I-T-E. And Padia is shadow resting. And Kados accusate. And Kados, K-A and the other T, T-A, Kata is the category. And the Kados are all the things that go underneath in that category. All the names that accusate. And Fadia is shadow resting. And Kados accusate. That means to go down to the bottom of the columns and pick out the right day for the word. And accusate, Addy. And on it. A-N-T-E is anti, and it means the representation. And the representation is on it. The T-I reads as I-T, the on it. And it's written like this to fit in other words, as in the antics, on ticks, on its mark. And on its rise to circuit, to circuitage. And circuit, S-E-R-C-H-E-T, the circuitage is what you acquire from the circuit. And the circuit is what goes around, is coming. And they're getting this coming from this. They say it means, in the future. But circuit, is the scorpion god. She who tightens the throat. She who makes it hard to breathe. Getting close to death. And so paid you, to pay a visit is paid you. To come see ya, paid ya is the chateau resting. And Kados, in the god as, in according to's accusate. Audi, should he do, and should he antics rise to circuit and making it harder to breathe, the circuitage picked up along the way. And nine, and not nine, and nine on its rise to apology, gonna sin. And so, gonna is the male part, the gonad. Gonna sin, you have arisen. And the gina, that's the female part. And the gina is coming. In the apology of gonna sin of then, gina is coming. It's fixing to go down. Audi is chateau hour is it in. And so he's telling all the kids to go to bed because we fixing to do the nasty. The chupacabra is going to get you if you don't go to bed. But this reads different. It's got a bunch of tetragrammatons on it. And it's one of the reasons this word here comes up often. And it begins with an E and ends with an N because it can change. If the next word begins with an E like this, then this becomes a TIV. And so you can get festive out of this word, if a P is before it. And with an A in front of it, it turns in this to the ES. And so when this becomes an S, the second S becomes an I, and is it in. And you see it hide like this, this is of, the TH is the D, of the destiny. And so, and this is the promise, is more is end of the destiny, Pangaea. Pangea, that's the one continent, Pangea. And then this G over here, you'll see this is the same word for angel right here, AGGEL. And so they'll change this first up to an N. And I believe it has to do with following this A more than another G behind it. But you see on other words, a double G, they'll turn the first one into N. And then some words, just with a single G, they'll turn it into an N, following an A. And so these are all tetragrammatons. It's the only place in the world you find the word tetragrammaton is on magic, on this pentagram. But it breaks down into a tetragram and a maton. There's only two words that end with a maton, and it's automaton, and not to be confused with automation, but very similar. In automation, it's the self, and mation, mation to bring it to life. But automaton is a self-operating machine. And so the auto is the self. So the maton is an operating machine or mechanism. With motion, it moves. So a tetragram, as a four-letter word in motion. And so they say a tetragram is or a tetragraph, same thing, is a sequence of four letters that represents sounds not necessarily corresponding to those of the individual letters. But not necessarily four letters. That's something they're forced on there. But when you see the AE, and that represents the ES. Letters that represent sounds not necessarily corresponding. And they'll say it's the tetragrammaton is the four-letter name of God. And so in that fashion, it's these four-letter names. And that's where your word God comes from. Gad, the sun Gad was Aries, and that's the Yod, He, Vav, He. And so you only got three different letters here. The E is twice. And you see that they all have a different pattern. And so this is where they get the tetragrammaton. When it says tetragrammaton, we mean Lord. You see it on the front page of the Bible. And so in this fashion, it means, in that sign. It's also a complete quadrilateral, which is four intersecting lines, and there's 6 intersecting points. And also the Chinese characters, which were made up out of 4 separate characters. But it's also, the I Ching, the change. And also a degenerate star polygon. And so a degenerate star polygon would be the Star of Israel. This is called a 5-2. It got 5 points, and you have to make to complete around the circle in order to complete it. And so a 6-2 would have 6 points and still 2 circles around, but you have to degenerate it. You're making a triangle and then you degenerate it to another triangle. And so this would be, a 6-2. And so I figured out, some of these, like the OE becomes a OLE and the AE becomes the ES. And I'm sure there's others, especially in the Greek, when you see a A, sometimes 4 or 5 vowels in a row. And I Googled a word with the I on it, and they replaced it with a TE. So it's possible that the IA becomes the T. And the NE, it changes. And from come on to come of they, to come on they, to come of they. And of catches on becomes, catches of its. So when you read it, the AE is the ES. It becomes, the fade, or even the faith would be spelt like this. The D is the TH. And so the fade, a JES, and the second one becomes the I, a Jesse. And Jesse means to go out, to fade out. Or it would be in the Pali, to conquer, a form of jetty. And the top of this chapter, that's what it's talking about, the paleo. And fade Jesse's chateau restin. And this is, this becomes RES. And then the I, the resitin. And the fade Jesse's shadow resitin. Akados, to the god as accusate. Audi on its rise to circuitage. Should he on its rise to search and search it. And edge, what you acquired from the search. The searchitage is what you saw. And 9, and not on its rise to, if all. And the second L becomes the Y, poly would be many. But, to if all is more than many. If wholly. And if wholly of a jig. A jig is the day. A jig on a zen has arisen. A day on a zen. Go to the catos and pick out the day of honors in. Of then, a gin, meaning again, and then again as coming. Not the first time, but again is coming, Audi, is chateau resident. So it appears that the Antichristo is the knowledge to choose, the on its rise to. And it's like, underway when you're in the Navy, you're going to have 3 different watch sections, standing 4-hour watches. And in order to make them shift, we'll have a dog watch. We'll have 2-hour watches one time a day. So every day you don't get the same watch. So it rotates, and on its rise to. And so as you're doing magic, every day has a different angel of the hour. It shifts up. You got an even number of hours and an odd number of angels. And so you have a different one that rise to, each morning. That's why you have a different name for each day. And so it looks like, the on its rise to is the knowledge of the cycle going through and picking a different. But you see, most all of these words, they have a mark on the first letter, turns around the other way. These words all here read forwards and backwards, or backwards and forwards. So of then, or Odin, becomes, to add in it, and adding it again as coming. And so it becomes the faith ya attaches is the shatter, and then back the shatterer. Nights knits is it in? The knits. The knit is Nith, the one that weaves all the heavens. The nights is it in, creating all the heavens, the time. Indicados, in the God as it has woke. ETAS, it has, in WOKE, at his woke, accuse it. At it, AOTIT, at it. At its, at, search it in. On ticks, rise to. And yet, when this word's reading backwards, that's where they get this is coming. And they'll always put this itai, meaning, in the future. And that's where it comes from, is yet. I haven't yet, but I will be. And its rise to yet the share. Its share. So it hasn't seen its share yet. And yet the share. And the share is the czar. And it's the Chiro, the Catholic Church. It's the ruler. To share the Rex, the king, the Rexitage, the king it acquires. And none jot. Jot is little writing, and none jot the search it in. On it cries to, if all joy. The jiggin is in, the day is in, attend, OTENED, attend, a genius coming that we know they're getting that from, a genius. The genius coming at it, attaches its shadow, attaches its shadow. You see this mark above here, it turns the other way. So this one tells you to read it backwards first. This one tells you to read it forwards first. And so you only read this letter from the open side. And so when it's here, you're not reading the E until you get it this way. And when it's here, you're reading the O the first time, and you're not reading it back this way. And it attaches his shadow. And then RARN, rarin, it's cestin. Rarin, it's cestin. And cestin, your cest is your family, your lineage. And so not it is, but it's. And so, and none that jot search it in, and there's no little writings in it. Makes me think that it's talking about down here where there was no writings in this day. And they damn sure removed something here after the paint was done. And I imagine it had the cross here. And that's what this whole chapter was talking about, was how to read this, what the monkey wrote. And so they'll flip words around. And they'll say anthropos is a man, and it's actually a monkey. An anther is the male sexual origin, and oppose simply means it has an opposing thumb. It's a male primate. And the word for ape, this is on ape. The ape is an intelligent man. It's where your word apt and aptitude comes from. On apt is an intelligent man, and an anthropos is a monkey. So thank you much, Chosen One, for pointing out my mistake. I would have been a lot more embarrassed if I had found it myself. But that's what all this chapter was talking about, Jesus our advocate. And I believe that was the cross. And they had to remove it because they didn't want people to know that representation was going around 1,500 years before Jesus. And Jesus is the Antichrist. It was this spot over here to let you know to cross up, time to cross up and go to the other side. So you could have your 6 days and have 12 months here. Or it's possibly, the ancient symbol of the RX, the Chiro. And wasn't just painted on the wall, but was, gold or jewels or something inset. But in the last 5-6 movies, I've been skipping around this chapter and reading different spots. In this next one, I'll hit the legend of Pootie Heine. We'll cut this off here. Good day.